from our message this past Sunday. I think week 4 of our series, Blessed, was an interesting week. Some of the feedback we've gotten, lots of positive. Some said passionate, some said intense. But we're going through the series Blessed, looking at Matthew chapter 5. This week, verse 9, we're looking at Beatitudes, which means blessedness. We're looking at what characteristics does a blessed person have. And Jesus addressed this one, the second to last one. He says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." I think as Christians, oftentimes it's easier to be a peacekeeper than it is to be a peacemaker. What's the difference? A peacekeeper avoids tough things, circumstances to keep the peace. I'd just rather have a surface type of relationship or avoid this conversation because, I'd just rather keep the peace within that relationship. But peacemakers embrace those conflicts to restore peace in that relationship or situation. And this is not an easy thing to do. There are so many variables to this. Some of it out of our control. Some of it we absolutely have control over. We can choose to say, I want to work through something. I want to embrace this situation. But ultimately, it's not all up to us, especially when we're dealing with relationships and people. So I just wanted to talk through some thoughts because as peacemakers, what are some things that we can do in trying to make peace with people? Number 1 is Ephesians 4:15 says, "Instead we should speak the truth in love, growing in every way more like Christ." We need to know that when we're trying to be peacemakers, the person we're working with or the situation we're in, we need to realize that we need to speak the truth in love. That doesn't mean yelling the truth, right? He didn't say yell the truth, it says speak the truth. When we're looking at a situation, yelling, arguing, making absolute statements is not going to fix a problem. It's not going to help the situation in any way. And so as peacemakers, we need to know that speaking the truth in love is important. And we need to do that in the right time, in the right setting, in the right mindset. And if we don't do that, then we're going to have issues. That's why sometimes we need to cool off. Sometimes we need to walk away. Sometimes we need to think something through before it happens. So it was funny, I was watching this interview with President Trump, and he said that he hates Twitter, which is funny because, he uses Twitter a lot. He says it's a necessary evil. He says that, he goes, back in the day you would write up a memo saying something to someone in response to some situation, and you'd leave it on your desk. And then you'd come back the next day and you've had time to think about it, and he goes, oftentimes you just end up throwing the letter away. sometimes you'd send it in, again anyway because you felt like, okay, that was good what I said, or you'd tweak it or change some things. He goes, but with Twitter, you don't do that. You see something and you respond, out of the flesh, and you just send it instantly, and it's out there. And you can try to delete it even pretty quick, but somebody's already screenshotted it, and now it's everywhere. So regardless if you delete it or not, it's out there. And I think that's such a true thought for us, in our lives, as we're working through conflict. Like Christ, are we doing it out of love? Are we embracing that situation? Say, you know what, I want the end result to be peace. And the way that I speak, the way that I approach this can determine the outcome. Do we think about that? Do we really embrace that idea of that? Because, if I speak rash, if I speak harsh, if I speak downright mean in absolute statements, then the outcome may not go well. And it's not because what I say may not be true. It could be 100% true. But the way that it was said, or how it was said, will determine whether it's received or deleted. And that's an important thing to remember for us. So, as Christians, we need to be peacemakers. And the reason we need to be peacemakers is because it says at the end of this verse that we need to be peacemakers because we will be seen as children of God. And I think when we are patient, when we are slow to anger, when we share the truth in love, that we reflect God. And when we reflect God as His children, we are in His image. And so as we look at that, we will never be more like God when we love those around us and we speak to them in truth, but in love, with the goal of making peace. So that was just a thought from this past Sunday's message. If you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to go catch up this week, because we are in week 5 of this series, Blessed. Then we're going to a new series. So this is the last week of our series, and the last characteristic of what a blessed person looks like. Verses 10, 11, and 12 of chapter 5. So, hope to see you Sunday. Have a great night.